And we are back with another episode of the Hockey Princess podcast. I am your host, the Hockey Princess. We have Crusty Old Guy once again. Folks, as promised, we are going back to school this week.
Hooray! I don't like school, though.
But it's hockey school.
I still don't really like school.
But it's
hockey school. Okay, I'm in.
Hockey school. It's something different. It's the off season. We don't have a ton to talk about with our team or.
Well, we've got a ton to talk about, but yeah, let's do it.
We gotta do something different in the off season. So, like I said last week, we're going back to school. We've got a couple of different topics that we're just gonna break down a little bit, not too much, because I'd like to get to as many as we can. It's something different. Leave us a review, whether you like this episode or not. It's something different for the off season.
Yeah, relax. We got a lot of time till opening day.
We got so much time. All right. First, Krusty, and I've got the whiteboard. I'm very excited. Anytime that I can break out this whiteboard, I'm a happy camper.
Okay.
So I think...
Yeah, I remember when I used to have one of these, it was like a chore board, but it never really got used or anything got erased off, so...
But now we have... And look, it says our name on it.
That's not my name, that's your name.
It says my name on it.
Yeah.
Which is even better.
Sure is.
I think before we get into the nitty-gritty...
Now, if we could put like the DraftKings emblem also on that, I'd like that too. So,
Big brain, Krusty. Speed bump number 1.
Uh-huh. And then around the outside of it, we could have an electronic board that like rolls around and around advertising stuff too. How about that?
Sure.
Okay.
Whatever you want, Krusty.
Oh, nobody said that ever. Okay, let's go on.
I think before we get too into the nerdiness, we should kind of take it down to the true hockey 101. And I think the thing that we should start off with first is, who's on the ice? And why are certain players in certain spots on the ice?
Okay.
So we're going to go over positions really quick. We've probably gone over this multiple times. But you know what? We have new listeners. And it doesn't hurt to go back to the basics.
And you love the whiteboard, as we've
And I do love my whiteboard, guys. This is the best thing.
So, and remember, it's always just about the Hockey Princess.
Exactly. So positions, we've got 3 guys up front. We've got 1 in the middle. That's your centerman. And then you've got your left wing and your right wing, depending on how you're looking at it.
Yes, because see, to me, it goes right and left. Yeah, you just, that's number 1.
Yeah.
Okay.
So these guys are your forwards. There's usually 3 on the ice during regular gameplay. Sometimes players can play both. They can play a winger position and centerman slot. Some players are just truly a winger through and through. Just completely different skill sets. Next, we've got our 2 defensemen right there. There's a righty and a lefty. Usually, if teams have the setup to do it, your guy left. Is this your left, Krusty?
That is my left, yes.
Perfect.
It is your viewer's left also, and that's what you want.
Love. Your lefty will also be a left-handed defenseman, and then you guess right, your righty is a right-handed defenseman. Ideally, can players play with their offhand? Sure, but it makes it a little bit easier in the gameplay if your left defenseman is a left-handed defenseman, and if your right defenseman is a right-handed defenseman. And then we have our friend that we refer to as Thank you, Spencer Knight. That's his full name, not just Spencer. It's thank you, Spencer Knight, in goal. So we've got 3 forwards, 2 defensemen, and then 1 goaltender. That is 6 guys per team on the ice at one time during regular gameplay. With that, you've got 4 lines of forwards. So that's going to be 12 forwards total. And then you've got 3 pairings of defensemen. So 6 defensemen total. And then usually you've got 2 goaltenders, usually. As we talked about with the Stanley Cup Finals, teams can roll 3 goaltenders deep, but you're going to have 2 dressed for an actual game. This is why I say usually there's 2. Because it's pretty rare for a team to run 3 goaltenders deep.
Yes.
Is there a requirement saying that you have to have this sort of setup? No. We've seen, Blackhawks, when we've had injuries, they've been down a defenseman. So you run 1 extra forward and then 1 less defenseman. That happens. But 90% of the time, it's going to look like this. Now, Christy, I'm going to flip the next bit to you.
Oh.
Yeah.
Shit. Okay.
So we've got, like I said, we've got our 3 forwards. You got a first line, a second line, a third line, and a fourth line. Would you be able to kind of break down the differences? Because as we've talked, throughout the offseason, during the draft, referring to players at top 6 versus bottom 6, you're looking at different types of players. Different types of players are going to play on different lines and kind of what sets each line apart.
Well, I guess I can. I'll basic it is you've got your top 2 lines. So your top line is usually at least your best player sprinkled with other best players. Your second line, they're both considered your heavy duty scoring lines. Also your best players. So your top 2 lines can fluctuate over who's exactly the number 1 line, who's the number 2 line. Gives us something to talk about here on like a podcast or something. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter much. The Blackhawks, Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews played together for like the first 2 to 3 years at tops. Then they were split up the rest of their career. You could have argued one was a top line, one wasn't, but you could have really interchanged the first and second lines. So on most teams, they have their 2 top scoring lines, and they go into their third line. It's not as important as it used to be. It was always considered your third line was a heavy duty checking line. Defensive specialists, you would try to get them on the ice against the other team's top line, especially if they were a team like Edmonton when they top heavy their top line. This third line, you just want them to win battles, keep the puck in the other end, tire out the top line before they can get moving, before they have to do the lines change. That isn't as prevalent, if that's the correct word, as much as it used to be. Most good teams, most playoff teams roll 4, but you still have one that's a lot more defensive sound. That's usually your third line. And then your fourth line, depending on your team, is you like to put out your thumper line. That you've got a little bit more oomph, a little bit more nastiness. They're brought out. A lot of teams will use them right on the opening draw to set a tone when they don't have momentum and things aren't going that way. Teams like to all of a sudden bring out their fourth line, because if you're new to hockey or just been watching for a little while and you listen to the broadcasts, you'll hear everybody talk about momentum.
Oh, yeah.
Momentum, which is a real thing in the hockey world. If you can string together 3 aggressive shifts, things start to change in your favor. There's no doubt about that. So, but your fourth line is a lot, less money guys. Don't have to be the fastest, but in this day and age, they're usually pretty fast too.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of the way they work. Now, a rebuilding team, a lot of times that fourth line all of a sudden just looks like not as much of a thumper line as young kids.
Yeah.
But their structure is straight line, dump the puck in, make some noise. You'll watch top lines, you'll watch Connor Bedard play. It's as they like to say, some east-west play, not all north-south, or it's the other way around. But straight line play is usually in the third and fourth line. That's basically the difference. Usually ice time follows. Your top 2 lines get the most ice time. Then your third line, depending on how much you're going to match up. And then your fourth line gets the scraps, depending on how the game's going.
Excellent.
How did I do?
You're doing great, Krusty.
Krusty loves positive reinforcement.
Let's see. Where do I want to go next?
Uh-oh, she's figuring out where to go next. Okay.
Well, because we've got two labels of player that we see a lot and, have definitely come up with the draft when talking about centermen and just bigger guys. Because the entire draft, prior to us trading away the number 4 pick, and even with us not having the number 4 pick, I've been very vocal on needing size, wanting size. And so with that, we've got what is a power forward and what actually is a two-way centerman.
You want to handle that or you want me to?
You go for it, Krusty.
Okay, Krusty's going to go for it. The power forward.
Because I feel like there's a difference between someone being labeled as a power forward and just being a physical player. I feel like sometimes those get interchanged, but they don't necessarily mean the same thing.
Yeah, at the end of the day, when you start to really look up power forward, it's somebody that's hard to move off the puck, that is able to go to the net and can stay there unless somebody really works hard at moving them out in front of the net.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody who's allowed to take the puck right in to the middle and it isn't easily pushed off. Also, somebody who can hold the puck by himself by just shielding another player. In the game now, your power forwards are the Tkachuk brothers. On the Blackhawks right now, I don't think we have one, but you've got the one guy that I like to point out is on the Ducks right now is Alex Killorn, who is he's a 6'3", solid player, can skate, but has no problem going in front of the net, playing physical. He is your classic power forward. He's given just a couple jobs to do, and that's it. And with a classic power forward, somebody who might not be considered top 6 talent can play on the top 6 as long as he's surrounded by 2 other really talented players.
Right.
And he'll know his role. It becomes important because if you watch the playoffs and you watch good teams, it's a lot of cycling the puck in their offensive end. And a power forward just has the ability to skate around and nobody can get him off the puck.
Yeah.
So it becomes crucial. And that's, a strategy in hockey. Just wear the other team down, get them tired. And that's usually when people make penalties. So it's usually somebody who's at least 6'2", 6'3", and thick. You have people like Eric Daze back in the day.
Lurch.
Or other, players in the modern era that are over 6'3", but they're just not as thick.
Mm-hmm.
And, the other person we always like to use, especially for older Blackhawk fans, is Brian Bickle and Troy Brower, who weren't the greatest top six talent, but they were 6'3" and thick. And it makes it difficult for people to hit them because
Brian Bickle's a unit.
yes, because then you just bounce off. The classic one that everybody likes to think of is when Buff played forward for a little bit. And, you run into them and you don't do anything to them because these are huge men. Tom Wilson, another premier power forward.
Yeah.
So that's what you're looking at, and you'll constantly hear these do not grow on trees because they just don't. It's a unique skill set. They're not usually your top goal scorers, but they can easily be in the 30 goal range, and they're able to do everything. And they are unbelievably important for possession. That kind of help?
Absolutely.
And then the classic
two-way
centerman, or when cool people are on podcasts or talking and they want to just like slip something past you to where you go, oh my God, they must be smarter than me. Then they go with the 200-foot centerman because he plays a 200-foot game. Don't be intimidated by that. Basically, all anybody is really saying is, I'm not going to kick anybody while he's down and just out of surgery, but like a Connor Bedard is not really considered a 200-foot centerman because defensively, with his size and defensive game, you're just not as strong as others. The best way to describe it is we talked a little bit about the third line checking line, where you have a centerman that can play really good defense.
Jason Dickinson.
Right. So now you take somebody like Jason Dickinson, and he's got a shit ton of talent. And then he plays on the top line. Sidney Crosby.
Yep.
An incredible 200-foot. Jonathan Taves. An incredible 200-foot centerman. Again, Mark Scheifele. Just known for it because whenever you put them out there, there's not the fear of the other team going the other way as much. Again, those don't grow on trees either. It's an unbelievably skilled league, but these players just embody something where, from a coaching standpoint, you don't need to worry about your line when they're out there.
Right.
Because they play within a structure and everything else. They're not cheating, trying to go to the other way. So those are kind of like the catchphrases of all of that in the forward world. And it's just not a commodity that a lot of teams have a lot of. Unless you're Florida, then all of a sudden you have a ton of power forwards, and they're everywhere.
They're a goon squad.
But that's an overabundance, and most teams do not have that. And again, you have to figure out how you're going to set up your whole team. Even if you look at Carolina, really, the perfect almost two-way centerman power forward is Jordan Stahl. But they have a lot of littler players that play a certain way, but are all pretty tough on the puck. The guy from Montreal, two of them from Montreal, the young kid, the Slavashavaba, I'm going to mess it.
Slafkovsky.
Yes, he's considered a power forward. The other person on Montreal that I really love and who fits in with it is a Josh Anderson. That is a power forward. Can play up and down the line, wherever needed. But so that's about it.
Excellent.
I don't want to go too long.
That's okay. That's
all righty.
What the episode's about.
Okay.
Want to break two things down really quickly. We're going to go over, the common reasons why the ref is blowing the whistle during a game where it's not a penalty. And that is your offsides and your icing. Just because it happens a lot. So we've got our people. We've got the Chicago players. This is the Chicago side. This is the away side. This is where we're trying to go to. So if we're going this way, we have the puck.
That's
Your skates go over the blue line over here. You're going this way. Your skates go over before the puck does. They're going to blow it dead. You want the puck first, skates follow. Unless you're the refs a couple of years ago during a game against Tampa that I still will never understand. But you want puck first, then skates. Again, when you're going towards the opposing goaltender. Going towards your own defensive area, you can do whatever you want. Preferably, if the puck is going that way, you should also be skating that way. But you just want the puck to go before the blue line for your skates.
Correct. Do you want to elaborate on that a tiny bit or no? We could tell them about the touch-up offsides if you would like. So we'll throw that one also out there.
Yeah.
Basically means if the puck goes in to the offensive end and say there's a player who is at the time offsides, as long as he's able to come back across the blue line, he's allowed to come back across the blue line and then play the puck. That's where everything gets a little sketchy, and we won't dive heavy duty into that unless that happens during the season, and then
we'll break out the whiteboard.
The hockey princess another reason to break out the whiteboard.
Yeah. And then we've got icing, which is another common one that happens where there's no penalty, but the play is going to be blown dead. And that is we only need one X for this one. Say a player's over here. Actually, yeah.
No. For those listening at home, Hockey Princess is now drawing a player that's like on their defensive side of their own blue line, as they like to call it in the biz.
So basically, you can't take the puck from here and just chuck it all the way to the other side.
You cannot.
You at least have to skate up until about the halfway point. Or someone on the other side. Like, you can make a pass to, say, a player here is making a pass to somebody over. That is completely fine. But if there's no pass being received and it's just kind of a complete dump from one end of the ice to the other, that is icing.
Correct.
And then we won't delve too much into the logistics of penalties, but I did want to just kind of bring up what it looks like on the ice. So we've got, for those listening, I am just setting up one side. So we've got our 3, R2, R1, and we've got one less guy on the other side. So when a penalty is called, one team has a guy that is going to do the walk of shame in the penalty box.
As we like to say, he does something wrong, he's got to go to the box and feel shame for 2 minutes.
Yep, he's got to go sit in timeout for 2 minutes. So that team will be down a guy. 9 times out of 10, penalties are going to be about 2 minutes long. Some penalties are longer. It's very much, they'll escalate based on the severity of whatever the penalty was. Usually it's more like fighting, soccer punch. If somebody is, consistently escalating their poor behavior throughout the game, the refs might amp it up a little bit, but 9 times out of 10, it's going to be 2 minutes. So this team has a player doing the walk of shame. They're going to be down to 4 and the goaltender versus 5 and the goaltender. This side that's down a guy, They are on the penalty kill because they are killing what? Their penalty. Then this side is on the power play because they have the one-man advantage. Usually, the power play consists of 4 forwards and 1 defenseman, unless you are Chicago. You can't
or Vegas.
Or Vegas. But as Chicago and Vegas has taught you this year, it doesn't work. So 9 times out of 10, it's going to be 4 forwards and 1 defenseman, or you can do 5 forwards. There's also nothing in the rule book that says that you can't keep it to, 3 forwards and 2 defensemen like normal, but most teams will do 4 forwards and then 1 defenseman, and usually that 1 defenseman is running the power play. And this is where Chicago likes to get into the discussion of, well, which right-handed defensemen that we have are going to be running our power play. So, Krusty, I ask you, why is a defenseman running a power play?
Well, again, that's another hip term that all of us like to use to confuse people so they think we're smarter than them. He's not really running a power play. Nobody has watched him when he was in Seattle, but Kevin Korchinski was ideal at it. And what Kevin Korchinski did with the Seattle Thunderbirds?
Yep.
God, what a great name, the Thunderbirds. That defenseman is usually the facilitator.
Mm-hmm.
He is just the puck mover, moving things around to set up my skilled players. So that's when they say a power play quarterback, for the most part, he's just a facilitator.
Mm-hmm.
His job, like on this team, is to get the puck to Connor Bedard in space. Okay, so that's the name of the game, because what you want to do is you want to get the other team to move their 4 players in a direction that you're able to isolate your player that you have the advantage because you have 1 extra person with a much more wide open shot.
Mm-hmm.
So you're facilitating to get this to move around. That's basically what it is, unless you're a premier defenseman like Makar, like Quinn, who has the ability, and like Bo Byram, who has the ability to skate in around people and really almost act like a forward out there, and he attacks. But for the most part, most teams don't have a player like that, and they rely on their forwards. So even Victor Hedman, one of the better power plays was Tampa Bay, and he was just a facilitator. And as a facilitator, you need a nice booming shot that you can get through occasionally. That's the name of the game. But the quarterback thing is weird because, back in the Cup days for the Hawks, I had always liked the power play goes through 88.
Mm-hmm.
On the Chicago Blackhawks, the power play needs to go through 98. On Tampa Bay, your power play goes through what's his name?
Kuch?
Yeah, Kucherov. So teams have those type of players. The objective is to get them the puck with space, let them be creative and attack. So how did I do on that?
Incredible.
Oh,
incredible. Krusty, do you have anything else on just straight up gameplay?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, then we are going to flip to something real quick, since it only happened a couple of weeks ago. Realized we talked a lot about the draft, but there were also a lot of things that we left out about the draft. Who is eligible? Where are they coming from? What does the USNTDP actually mean? So we've got answers. So the draft happens every year. Everyone is eligible that would be they have to turn 18 by September 15th of that year. So they can be 17 going into the draft. As we saw, Connor Bedard was 17, and everybody was freaking out that he wasn't signing his contract immediately after. It's because he hadn't turned 18 yet, and then the minute he turned 18, he signed his contract. So you can go into the draft at the age of 17. You just have to be 18 by September 15th of that upcoming year. For North American players, you have to be under the age of 20. For European players, under the age of 21. And they can come from really any league. We've got college, we've got USHL, the CHL, European professional leagues, as we saw with, Frendel, Bjork, Stenberg, or like junior leagues. We've got the KHL and their affiliates, the Liga in Finland. They can come from anywhere, and scouts are watching everywhere. Now, because I really, really like graphics, and I think it's better with a map. Now, I say USHL. You're probably thinking, Hockey Princess, what does USHL mean? And that is, right, Krusty? It's cool. We love a map. So this is the United States Hockey League program. This is a variation of juniors within the U.S. It's a bit smaller. They're primarily in the Midwest. Their furthest east team is the Youngstown Phantoms, and then you've got I think it's probably the Sioux City or Tri-City Storm in Nebraska. That is going to be your furthest west. This is kids, I want to say, like 17 or 16 to 20. This is a junior league. Some players will get drafted out of this. Sometimes they move on to college. Like if you're Macklin Celebrini, did he play at BU his draft year? Yes. But before that, he was with Chicago, for the Chicago Steel with the USHL. One team that I wanted to bring up in particular, because as you can see on this map, the rest of the teams are pretty straightforward with where they are, except for the USNTDP, which is the United States National Team Development Program. Guys like Will Smith, Ryan Leonard, there's a lot of notable players that have come out of that program. They are located in Plymouth, Michigan, which is right outside of Detroit. There is a U17 team, which primarily plays against these USHL teams. And then you've got a U18 team, which plays against collegiate teams throughout the year. So they've got two. But this is definitely one of the junior leagues that you will see kids like the Green Bay Gamblers. That's where Adam Guyon, before going to UMD, played at. So this is just a junior league that kids can get drafted out of. The other ones, and for those that are really interested in junior leagues, highly recommend to rewinding all the way back to the first time we had our buddy Adam on to explain kind of the breakdown of the CHL. So the CHL is broken down between three leagues: the W League, the OHL, and the Q. There's more letters in the Q League, but everyone just refers to it as the Q League because it's the Quebec League. So we'll go left to right. WHL, as you can see, it's everything basically west of Ontario. And this will apply to Canada and the US. Both Canadian and American players can play in this league, as well as European players, but the path for European players is just a little bit different to get into these leagues. We won't get into that. But this is kind of a breakdown to kind of show you where everybody is within the WHL. This is where Connor Bedard played, Gavin McKenna played prior to going to Penn State, Kevin Korchinski, as Krusty pointed out, with the Seattle Thunderbirds. So this is all West Coast, and anyone that is from anywhere west of Ontario, if they want to play in the Canadian Hockey League, they would be eligible to only be playing in the WHL. Jumping over to Ontario, this will apply to anybody who either is from the province of Ontario or anyone that is, in the States that is kind of in that same range on the map. So if you came out of Chicago, you would qualify to be playing in the OHL if you wanted to play in the Canadian Hockey League. We've had a lot of prospects come out of the OHL for this rebuild, and previously you got the London Knights, home of Patty Kane. And then this one, like I said, will operate the same. It's just Canadian and USH players, or US players for the most part, anyone that is in that range on the map. And then finally, we've got one of my favorites, the Q League. This is where Krusty's new favorite, XV, was drafted out with the Armada, I believe. So this is going to be anybody that, kind of falls under that Quebec and Maritime range on the map. And really all three of these, I want to say again, you're about between 16 to 19. Every team can have a couple of 20-year-old players, but that can't be the entirety of your roster. So Canadian teams, just because you have a quicker time with these players, moves a lot faster in terms of their rises and falls. Usually there's not really a ton of teams that stay completely competitive for a long period of time, just because guys are in and out of those teams pretty quickly.
Yes, and kids from Canada get drafted into this league. There is also a league underneath, I believe, that they're also drafted to. It's quite a big deal.
Yes.
And it's serious business up there.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, not to say it's not serious business down here also, but it's just not to the level.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the U.S. has made leaps and bounds as far as development programs in cities. The big ones now, like your LA, like your Arizona, like your Florida, which, back when I first started doing, they didn't exist. So,
yeah.
Which is nice because, however, if we can start to put pressure on 12-year-olds, I think that's the way we should do it.
Jesus. Okay, let's not get carried away. But those are kind of the bigger North American junior leagues. Obviously, there's college, but there's only so many maps that I can pull up. We because of other sports being more popular that are also tied to college, I think folks have an easier time associating different colleges that have bigger athletic departments compared to kind of the other junior side of hockey in North America.
Yes, and I mean, we could spend 5-6 hours and have Adam on, and you could go through the whole game plan of development for everybody, which would be crazy.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
It is a big thing, and kids are leaving their homes awfully early to go play.
Absolutely. So that is kind of, everything leading up to the draft. We covered the draft, but this is kind of, the years coming up to it. Krusty, do you have anything before we hit an ad break?
I don't think so. It all comes down to this. There's a World Cup going on, and DraftKings has you covered every step of the way. DraftKings Sports app is now available in all 50 states and includes all markets. Sweat every shift in the cup, all in one place with one app. New DraftKings customers sign up with the code THPN, spend $5 to get $200 in rewards within 21 days. That's code THPN in partnership with DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Bet with DK Sportsbook. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. 1-800-MY-RESET. New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. Connecticut, call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino in Kansas, bet text pass through may apply in Illinois. 21 and over. Void in Ontario. Event contract trading with DraftKings predictions involves risk of loss. Sportsbook bonus bets expire in 7 days. $50 in predictions dollars issued weekly for 3 weeks expire in 1 year. Redeem one non-withdrawable reward. Availability varies. Predictions offer void in New York. Ends June 28. Terms at dkng.co/audio.
All right. So the next thing that I wanted to bring up, because one, I think it's important to talk about, and two, because we've had a little bit of drama with this subject, not only with our team, but also with other teams throughout the league, is contracts. And kind of how to read, whether you're on Elite Prospects or Puckpedia or whatever you use to look at, different teams' contracts, kind of what does everything actually mean? Why is, the trade deadline kind of also tied into free agency quite a bit? What does arbitration mean? All this stuff. So,
Holy cow.
For example, now this is the Columbus Blue Jackets, because I did not want to be biased and throw up ours. And I do think Columbus has a nice variety in different contracts, different restrictions and stuff to talk about. So first off, we kind of talked about last week the difference between an unrestricted free agent and a restricted free agent. Unrestricted is you are unemployed, you are seeking work, you can continue to be with your old work, or you may join new work. Restricted, just plain restricted free agent, is you don't have a contract for next year, but you're not completely unemployed. Your current general manager has to give you what is called a qualifying offer, which is, here's how much money we want to give you. Other teams can match it, like we've been seeing with the whole Leo Carlson debacle. They gave him a qualifying offer of a lot of money, and Anaheim has a week to match it, which I know that they're probably going to match it, but I don't know about you guys, but the longer that they don't match it, the more nervous it makes me. If they do match it, then Leo Carlson gets his money. They don't match it. Leo Carlson is a Philadelphia Flyer. The Anaheim Ducks receive 4 first-round picks as their picks in consecutive years. So, which is why I think it's, I don't know, that whole thing is just absolutely wild. I'd like them to match it just so everyone can stop joking about that Anaheim's going to let Leo Carlson walk so they can offer Sheik Connor.
Well, that's not going to happen. But with all of this becomes silly speculation on everything, and it's great filler for the summer for podcasts. Yeah. But the main gist of the restricted free agent is that player's rights are still owned by the team.
Yes.
They are still underneath the team's umbrella.
Yes.
So we talk about leverage. We talk about your ability to move. You don't have that until you hit your UFA years.
Yes.
Then all of a sudden you're a wild gun and can go anywhere. So there's a give and take until then. What's happened this year has just been an explosion by if Krusty's going to throw in his little input by a general manager who did not think things through properly. But, that's just me. I can only imagine the offer sheet that Porter Martone is going to get. So, but basically, that's it. You're drafted by a team. They have your rights without getting too technical. approximately 7 years.
Yes.
And you've got to hit some playing milestones to then be a UFA after year 7, unless you're already under contract.
Which is like we can see, with the top handful of guys, like your Nichushkin, your Coyle, your Connor Garland, they are going to be UFAs, but they are locked up for a considerable period of time. You don't want, everyone hitting UFA status within the same year or two.
Yes. And this year is, as we stated, has just gotten a lot wackier, and there's a lot of players that are unsigned as our RFAs, and everybody's trying to figure out how all of this is working. One on Columbus who's not listed in our graphic is Adam Fatelli, who is an RFA.
Yeah.
He's up. He could be offer sheeted.
Yes.
So it all varies. Everything's gotten a little weirder. To put it without going a deep dive, is there are now hockey departments. We can touch for a second on analytics. Just a second. You have groups in your hockey organization that analytically look at everything.
Mm-hmm.
So they look at, okay, 4 first-round draft picks. Analytically, what does that look like? They have complete departments that put a value on that, a number value. And then you put a number value on the player. The Carolina Hurricanes do this better than anyone. And that's kind of how they make their decisions. And it's a value of what's more important. A 200-foot centerman or 4 first-round draft picks. And that's where we get to talk about what is the value, what isn't, because it's not an exact science. But that's the gist of the UFA and RFA.
Yep. Krusty pointed out the tidbit that usually teams will have your rights for about 7 years. But first, it's for about 3 years. You've got the entry-level contract, which is typically 3 years. It will kick in the first year that you actually play games at the big club. So say you are signed for Blackhawks, AJ Spelliscy got signed, but then went back to Windsor in the juniors. It's not going to kick in until you're actually starting to play at the professional level. I do want to point out on this list, Luca Pinelli, kind of at the bottom, you see the little graduation cap, the kind of up and down arrows. That usually will imply that this is their entry level. Typically, if you see that kind of graduation cap, that downward arrow is, if you're, looking on Puckpedia, which I always do, big fan, miss you cap friendly. That usually implies, and that kind of dollar amount where it's about anywhere between $875K to $925. It's under $1 million. But anything around that, you can kind of tell that is an entry-level contract, and then they will hit RFA. You never hit UFA after your first 3 years. You'll hit RFA, and then after that, I think it's contract depending.
Correct. And then without, again, we could do a whole show just on RFAs. Without throwing too much into it. On your entry-level contract, usually you are waiver exempt.
Yes.
Which means you can be sent down to the minor league affiliate with no repercussions. After that entry-level contract, you are no longer waiver exempt. I'm bringing this up because that is now the part of Kevin Korchinski, who is still just an RFA. They qualified him. He does not have a contract. He's just got the qualifying offer. But basically what it means for Kevin Korchinski is when the contract is figured out, if the Blackhawks decide to send him down to Rockford, all 31 teams have the chance to claim him.
I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, this also applies to EDM.
Correct. Yeah. Yes. So after your entry-level contract, you are no longer waiver exempt, and that becomes a sticking point, especially for a talented player who's not quite ready for your big club, but other teams who don't have as much talent might decide to take a stab at if you put them through waivers.
Yes. Next thing I wanted to jump to with the restricted free agents is we see, with your Kirill Marchenko, your Kent Johnson, the little hammer. Granted, not everybody is going to have a hammer, but that little hammer brings up what is arbitration. And arbitration has come up recently because there's been a couple of people. You got Robo, you got Connor McMichael that have both filed for arbitration this offseason. It sounds like the worst thing to me. Sounds like a meeting that I would not want to have. Arbitration is essentially a meeting between the player, so we'll use Jason Robertson. I would assume Jason Robertson's agent / team is all like, he's not just in there by himself, and management. And it is the player saying, I deserve this amount of money for this long, and this is the contract that I want. And management will come in with an entire list critiquing his gameplay and saying, no, this is why you don't deserve this much money. You deserve this other less amount of money because of all of these things that are wrong with your gameplay. It is a meeting where you are just critiqued by your boss of everything wrong that you do. It sounds like a nightmare. Arbitration can be for large discrepancies, like say the player wants 17 mil and the management just wants to give them between 14 and 15, or it could be really nitty gritty of, 500K. We've seen both in recent years in Chicago, but it doesn't have to be a huge discrepancy. It can really just be any sort of discrepancy because both sides are still sticking to what they want. The end of arbitration, they come to some sort of conclusion of this player is getting this contract. It sounds awful. I feel bad for the players that have to go through it. Nobody likes performance evaluations, but to just sit in a room and get critiqued about everything that's wrong with your gameplay, and then you have to go play for this same management for multiple years, it sounds not fun.
Well, I don't think it is. To tie in all of this nicely is you have the little bit of time where you can be offer sheeted, and then players like the ones you see with the hammer on this graphic or the ones that are arbitration eligible can ask for arbitration.
Yes.
That deadline, I believe, was like 2 or 3 days ago. Once they do that, like Robo asked for arbitration, he can no longer
get an
offer sheet. Again, you'll hear if you follow this sport or other sports, especially this one, it's business. This is the epitome of it's business. You have a bunch of very smart lawyers with a lot of analytical stuff and stats and everything saying why it should be lower and saying why it should be higher. It was a very bad sticking point, I would say 10 to 15 years ago, when this really started to come into effect a good amount, and you had hurt feelings. A player doesn't want to hear supposedly this team wants me, but they're telling me what my flaws are to get less. You run the risk of bad feelings, and especially in the environment we are in the NHL right now, where players are just saying, "Hey, I need out."
Yeah.
You've got players already doing that on their entry level contracts, so it's a weird one. If all sides go in with it, I don't know if the player is still there for the arbitration. I know they used to be, which is just crazy because
Yeah.
I would assume they just storm out and never want to play for the team because, well, they're saying I'm not that good.
Right.
Then why do you want me? It's just a hard spot. So
The thing that is always curious to me, where it's like the player is the one that files for it.
correct.
So you kind of know that, like, what you're going to end up getting in arbitration. Like, it's not like a hidden secret of what arbitration is. So it's always curious to me of, like, what's the internal, like, thought process of, like, weighing sticking to what I want, like, this is the dollar amount that I want, and then having to, like, go through that. Because it would be like, well, why do I want to play here if they don't want me? But obviously you want to play here because you're, basically choosing not to get a qualifying offer from anybody else.
Yeah, and basically the way it mostly works, I believe this year, I am sure I am wrong because I haven't done any of my research, but there's like 22 to 30 players that filed for arbitration.
Yeah.
Out of those players, I would assume only one or two of them make it to arbitration. What happens is they will set up an arbitration date and teams continue to negotiate. Basically, both sides of this, nobody wants to go do it.
Right.
So they're like, listen, we have a nice extension of another 3 weeks. Let's get to work and get this done. And that's usually what happens.
Yeah.
And it's usually a sign of the player saying, I'd like to stay here. Let's continue to talk. And again, the worst thing is if you don't, you've already got your qualifying offer. The team can say, you're signed for this.
Right.
And again, if that's the case and they don't negotiate, you can imagine the hurt feelings. So if we're learning anything, it's a lot of hurt feelings.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Yes. Go on.
I have nothing.
I have nothing.
You have anything else left on contracts?
I don't think so. I as I said, I think if we dive into it more, it becomes confusing. Feel free to send any questions to the Hockey Princess.
Yes, please.
And if you have any questions about a certain player and want to send us off an email, we will get back to you with the answer. We will do the work.
Absolutely.
Because Krusty wouldn't mind doing that kind of work.
One other topic that I wanted to wrap up really quickly before we finish up this episode is kind of just pointing out the other leagues in the world, because Christina, we talk about the NHL 90% of the time on this show, maybe less than 90% because we do a decent amount of Prospect and Rockford and
yes, you do.
But there are other leagues beyond the NHL. And so I kind of just wanted to break that down really quickly. With the NHL, like with most other sports teams, you've got kind of the minor league farm system for every major league team. So for the NHL, we've got our Chicago Blackhawks. Then we've got our AHL affiliate, which is the American Hockey League, and that is your direct minor. Think like your AAA baseball team to your MLB affiliate. Like it is that step underneath. So then you've got the Rockford IceHogs. Underneath the Rockford IceHogs, you have our good friends at the Indy Fuel with the ECHL League, still a professional league, but that is just going to be under. So you've got, Chicago, Rockford, and Indy, and most teams are going to follow suit where they have an AHL affiliate and an ECHL affiliate. every NHL team, because the Carolina Hurricanes got back together with the Chicago Wolves, every NHL team has an AHL affiliate. There was a hot minute where the Chicago Wolves decided to be independent, and then they had like a horrible record. There is an AHL team tied to every NHL team. That's where you send folks down. They also have, players that are contracted to them specifically, which means that they just play for Rockford. They do not get called up to Chicago. You do have players that have the ability to go, kind of north and south between Chicago and Rockford. And then same with Indy. You've got guys that are just on an ECHL contract. You've got guys that can get called up. You technically have players that, can start off in Indy and get called up to Chicago. We saw that with Jackson Stauber a couple of years ago when every goaltender decided to get hurt. So it just depends. Again, we won't talk too much on contracts anymore, but for the NHL and kind of the farm system, it's 3 tiers of the NHL, the AHL, and the ECHL. We have a couple of other leagues as well, around the world. Obviously, we have our PWHL, which is the Professional Women's Hockey League. Big fan. You also have the SHL, which is going to be your Swedish Hockey League. That's where Frondell was playing, Stenberg, Bjork. That is going to be out in Sweden. You have the Liga, which is the premier Finnish Hockey League. You've got the NL, which is going to be like your Switzerland, more kind of Central Europe, those smaller countries that don't necessarily have a league for their country. You have the DEL, which is the Deutsche Eisengard League, which is the German Hockey League, the DEL. And then you've got the KHL, and kind of the KHL also has their affiliates with the VHL and the MHL, which operates same as that, 3-tier that we were talking about with the NHL. So there is other hockey outside of the NHL. There's a lot of quality. There's a lot of good quality hockey outside of the NHL in North America and also just around the world in general.
That is correct. Sorry, I had to mute my microphone. We've got a barking dog.
No, that's fair.
Yeah, there's a ton of leagues. There's a ton of hockey out there.
Yeah.
It's all pretty entertaining.
It's very entertaining. Christy, do you have any final thoughts of our back to school episode?
I have no other thoughts about it. For anybody who's confused, I feel you. If you're going to get into this sport, we will go over this more. And again, questions are always welcome. We can either email back or do it on the episode. It gets a little confusing. Luckily, we live in the computer age where we're able to go and have resources to figure it out for you.
Yes. And even if, there's a larger question that folks have, we're, like Christy said, we're always happy to explain, but we're also happy to just point, if you just want to be pointed in the direction of, where do I find stats on prospects? Where do I find the, contract breakdown for my team? We are also more than happy to just share the resources that we have as well. But yes, please send us questions because it's the off season and we love answering questions as well. Well, that is our back to school episode, folks. Just as a reminder, make sure to hit that like and subscribe on either Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, YouTube, however you watch or listen to us. Christy is going to take a bye week next week. We are jumping over to some baseball next week with the All-Star break. We've got our friends from Glove Actually coming back. So we're going to talk what's going on in the world of baseball. Can Sam Antonacci really do it all for the Chicago White Sox? And, with Glove Actually, we got to talk some hockey romance, some sports romance book club. So it should be a very fun episode.
Yes, because Krusty won't be there. It will be fun. That's what Krusty hears.
All right.
Poor Krusty.
That's not crusty
Um,
back.
And for those wanting to know all about the newest Blackhawk stuff, we will get into that in a couple weeks.
Yep.
We have plenty of time.
Yep.
To go over our massive drama.
Yep.
But
all
I can say about it, and I'll leave you with this, is 8.8 million for 88.